right, today is drum day. I am starting a new project and I'm going to document the entire journey of this project here in my home studio. Now, I'll share a little bit more about this project as we go on, but since today is drum day and I'm obsessed with recording drums, I figured I'd share some of the recording process with you. So I recently got this Trident 68 console from Sweetwater. They sent it over for me to have and review and try and use. And I've been a little torn on it though, because I really didn't expect the mic pre's and the EQs to sound as good as they do. When you look at the scope of consoles, they're usually between $100,000 and $200,000 and up. This is an $18,000 console and it rocks. It sounds really good. So with that context, I want to talk about what I have been using on drums before the console. Up until now, I have been using these Warm Audio 73 British preamps, which are their take on the famous Neve 1073 channels, which sound notoriously great on drums. So I have been in love with these. I have 12 channels of them. I've been using them on drums for years at this point. So for this project, I thought it would be a very interesting test to basically put this whole track together using the console. But since I'm gonna do that, I wanna know what's gonna be the change from moving drums from the Warms to the Trident. And the way I'm gonna do that is I'm gonna track drums on the Warms first. And for the rest of the project, I'm gonna utilize the mic pre's on this console for everything else. And when all is said and done, I'll have a picture of what the drums sound like, and then come back, do another pass at drums, but using the Trident pre's. So that way I'll have the full context and we can basically just flip playlists between the Warm channels, what I have been using, and the Tridents. And I'm really excited. I think it'll be a fun experiment because I love both of these. Honestly, I think it's gonna be super cool and they may even be close, who knows. All right, so that's my plan on how I'm gonna go about putting this project together on the recording side of things. But for today, for drum day, I'll be using the Warm channels, and I'm going to do something that I should have done probably earlier and that maybe I don't do enough. And that is I'm going to change the drum heads on my drums before I record. Very excited about that. So I'll show you which heads I'm gonna use. I'll show you the drums I'm using. And then after that, I'll show you which microphones I'm using, where they're placed on the kit and in the room. And just for fun, we'll take a listen to what the drums sound like with the heads that are already on the kit versus what the new heads will sound like. And I'll show you how I got there. See what these heads currently sound like. All right, so I'll be starting with the snare drum. This is a CNC Black Beauty. I got this from them when I was like 17 years old. On the bottom head here, we have a Remo Ambassador snare side. And as you can see, I have the larger snare wires on here that have, I don't know what these are, 30, 32 or something like that. Snare wires that cover more of the bottom head. I keep this little dampener right up next to the head. So the new head we're gonna be putting on is one of my absolute favorite snare drum heads. This is a Remo controlled sound, and this is a 14-inch snare drum. Let's go ahead and get this fastened on. So this drum kit is a custom-made WFL3 three-piece that I have. The kick drum is 22 by 14, rack tom is 13 inches, and floor tom is 16 inches. And they sound phenomenal. Also, a fun thing I did on the kick drum here after I changed the heads is I took the blanket that's inside of the kick drum out of the kick drum, so it's open. The only thing in there is a Kick Pro pillow, not touching either of the heads. And then I laid the blanket down right up against the front resonant head on the outside of the kick drum. Hey! And it sounds huge.
Now, I didn't change the kick drum heads, but if you're curious, this is a Remo Power Stroke P3 Clear, and then that's a Remo coated Ambassador, I think.
All right, so that's what they sound like now, but I want to show you what I did to the heads after I changed them, because it's relevant to getting a particular type of sound that I'm looking for when I'm recording drums. Now, not in all circumstances, but in this circumstance. All right, so the snare is being dampened just with some gaffer's tape. Gaffer. Now I kind of just have like a hodgepodge of where it's placed, and there's really no rhyme or reason to it. It's just sort of like, you know, best judgment. Does it feel like it needs more? Does it feel like it needs less? And then I do the same thing on the toms. I have some gaffer's tape around, depending on how much dampening it feels like should be there, or control should be happening around the toms. This is really a subjective and to-taste thing, but I'll show you on top of the gaffers on the tom, I'm also using these guys. These are really cool rings from Big Fat Snare Drum, and this bottom part is like a soft fabric, felt type of material, and then on the top you just have like, I don't know, some plastic or something. And I put some extra gaffer tape on here to help secure it to the tom, because sometimes when you're playing, things get out of hand. It might bounce off or fall off sometime. All right, that's with the gaffer's tape. Now let's put these Big Fat Snare Drum rings on here. Okay, so obviously where the drums are placed in the room has a big effect on what they sound like. Also, it has a big effect on how the mics hear them. So with this setup, I'm using 12 microphones. All right, nothing super unique and different here. We've got 2 kick mics, 2 snare mics, kick in, kick out, snare top, snare bottom, 2 tom mics, rack tom, floor tom, 2 Mojave MA300s over the center of the kit. Not super high either. This height is about right at eye level for me. And then we have a hi-hat microphone, the SM7 back there. And then we have a drum kit mic, a mono kit mic right here. This is the FET 47 from Warm. This is just right dead center up front. Actually sounds really, really good on the snare drum. So the room mics are over here. This is kind of like a random spot, but my fabric wall absorption stops here. And then this is just like a very live corner, and the ceilings go up and it's all drywall. There's no rugs here. So yeah, these are the room mics. They are the AEA N8s, and they sound absolutely fantastic. So they're kind of, I don't know, maybe 15 feet or more away from the kit, but they're angled so that neither of the ribbons are directly pointed at the kit, and they're also not centered to the kit. So it's mostly just getting the resonance or reverberance of the room over there, and those room mics are a big part of the sound. So logistically, that's what's happening on drum day. I showed you the heads, the dampening, the microphones that I'm using, placement of everything, and yeah, if you have any questions, let me know down in the description. Generally, when I start tracking drums, I'll play through it a handful of times and get sort of the performance really dialed into the parts. Sometimes I'll go part by part, depending on if I'm familiar with the song or not. Other times I'll do full takes. And after a couple takes, it's good to take an ear break and go and listen to the sounds. And sometimes I'll tweak the mic position or levels. If I'm compressing something, I'll adjust that in between the takes to really, really dial things in. Always double check that mics have not been bumped or moved. Just make sure that everything's coming in clean. Solo those tracks. Simple, basic, and good practices. And in addition to great drum tracks, it's always nice to have good percussion tracks, depending on the song, of course. Would love to know what you guys use, what you think. Let me know down in the comments. Hit the like button, subscribe button. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next one.